crazy night. We brought Elton John face to face with Sirius XM subscribers for an intimate Q&A.
Are you guys out there ready?
His legacy.
It's as fresh now and as exciting now as it always has been.
His influences.
Getting to work with people that you love and admire is a huge, huge buzz.
And so much more.
Some of the outfits I wore were astoundingly fabulous, but they weren't really what you should be playing Candle in the Wind to.
With host David Frick, this is Sirius XM's Town Hall with Elton John. Recorded at the Wiltern Theater in Los Angeles, California.
Welcome to the beautiful Wiltern Theater in Los Angeles. This is a wonderful, wonderful room. I've never been here before. I'm David Frick. You're at the Sirius XM Town Hall with Elton John. This would be a special occasion on any occasion, but he is about to put out one of his finest records. I know because I've heard the whole thing and I've just written about it. It's called Wonderful Crazy Night. It's his third in a row, produced with T-Bone Burnett. Songs, obviously, by Elton John and Bernie Taupin. And, you know, you're on an extended run. You know, The Union, that sublime collaboration with Leon Russell, The Diving Board, and now Wonderful Crazy Night. He's had a life of special times, very special music, but this is extra special, and you get to share it with him and to ask him some really beautiful questions. Thank you very much for that. Let's just jump, because I think the first one is actually quite topical, and it's coming from Stephen Petzold.
Yes, Elton, we just lost David Bowie. Can you describe the impact he had on you as a performer and a musician?
Well, if it wasn't for David Bowie, I would never have found my original producer, Gus Dudgeon, and Paul Buckmaster, who arranged the first 3 albums for me. Because when I heard Space Oddity, I thought it was the most incredible record I'd probably heard for a long time up to that point. And the production and the arrangement of that song, I said, whoever did that, I really want to work with them. And so I got in touch with Gus Dudgeon and Paul Buckmaster, and we did the Elton John album together, and many more albums. So I've got David to thank for that. And, you know, there's been so many incredible words said and written about him in the last couple of days. I just said to David, it's so wonderful. We all know how inspiring he was. We all know what his music stands. We don't have to say anything about the music. It speaks for itself. He was an innovative. He was boundary changing. And he danced to his own tune, which is, in any artist, is really rare. But what I loved about him towards the end was that his incredible privacy during what must have been 10 years of incredible bad luck with illnesses, heart attacks, cancer, whatever. He kept it private. In an age we live in Twitter, where everyone knows everything about everything, he kept it to himself. He made 2 albums without anybody know he was making them. He didn't, you know, he had obviously treatment for his illnesses without anyone knowing or anyone saying anything. And that is the mystique of the man, because we know David Bowie, the figure, the singer, the outrageous performer, but actually we don't know anything about him. And that's the way it should be in music and should be in any art form whatsoever. And the dignified way, it was like he planned his death. There's a song on the album called Lazarus on the new record of Black Star. And it's as if he wrote that song. Well, he obviously did write that song about his own death. And there's a musical off Broadway with Michael C. Hall singing it. And it's incredibly chilling when you hear it. That to me is a true artist. They don't make them like that anymore. We've lost a huge, huge talent that influenced so many people. He influenced me with his humor, and the first show I ever saw him do was at the Finsbury Park Astoria in London. With Bernie and I went to see Roxy Music opened when Eno had long hair and lipstick and nail varnish. That shows you how long ago that was. And David did Ziggy Stardust. Amazing. Irreplaceable.
Well, it's interesting because I think David, on the records that he made, The Next Day and now Black Star, you're doing the records with Leon Russell, you have Wonderful Crazy Night. It's one of the things that the two of you share was this drive to continue creating at really a level that you considered and he considered important, that it wasn't enough to go through the motions and to do something to, you want to please fans, but ultimately, first, you need to please yourself.
You have to please yourself. With the beginning of my relationship with T-Bone Burnett, which was the Leon Russell album, The Union, I'd never really met T-Bone or spoken to him before that album. And I've had wonderful relationships with producers along the way, with Gus Dudgeon, Chris Thomas, and Greg Penny, and God, my mind. Anyway.
There's so many
There's so many, but it's really important to have a great producer, and T-Bone has turned into my new producer. And I learned from Modern Times, when Bob Dylan put out Modern Times, that was the template for my new life. I knew that I wasn't going to have hit singles anymore, because I'm too old to get played on the radio. I had my day in the sun, and I'm intelligent and savvy enough to know about the music business to know that's not going to happen. In a way, that was a huge relief, because it meant that I could actually do what I wanted to do in my 60s. So the union with Leon was a passionate thing, because I wanted to make an album and restore him to the public's attention, to get him into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, to get him into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and to get him known to the public again, because he was one of America's true great artists and writers. With the Diving Board, it was just really a trio record, and probably the most piano I've ever made. It was very uncommercial. It was a bit like the Blue Moves album, but I had to make it. And this album, I wanted to make a joyous record. I wanted to use my band, because we've been playing so well together. So those three albums are all totally different. And I think when you get to my age, you have to please yourself. And if people don't get it and they don't like it, that's okay, because you're pleasing yourself. If I was making a Motown record or a Christmas record, I would shoot myself in the head, because that is what my record company sometimes wanted me to do. And I said, no fucking way am I doing it.
Well, this actually brings us to a very good question from Scott Spriegel.
Hello, Elton.
Hi.
Nice to see you again. What's the biggest difference between making a new record in 2016 and one in 1976?
I think
the fact that you were using tape instead of whatever they use now.
Well, no, we recorded, the last three records were on analog.
Oh, old school, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful.
Old school. T-Bone is old school. The difference is now that I know I'm not looking for my chart position. I'm not looking to sell 1 million records first week. It's all changed. The scene's changed. I'm 69 years of age in a couple of months. And it's just knowing and creating something you want to be proud of. I was proud of Blue Moves so much. I was proud of all those records. And every record was a little different from the other. And I'm not chasing the commercial. I had 34 hits in 34 top 40 records. No, every year for 34 years I had a top 40 record. I'm not chasing that anymore. I don't have to. That was tough.
But do you sometimes find yourself just subconsciously competing with yourself creatively, artistically, saying, I know what that guy did, how do I take it forward without feeling like you don't want to feel desperate, you want to feel energized, though.
I do, and this record is a joyful record, and it's an energetic record, and it's probably the most up-tempo record I've made since Rock of the West is. It has a 70s flavor, but with a modern kind of sound. I have the greatest musicians playing with me, and we went into the studio. I go in there with nothing ready. I mean, Bernie has 20 or something lyrics. I go in the first day, I look at them on the piano, I see Blue Wonderful, I said, that's a good title, I'll do that. So we wrote that, and then the next day we did Wonderful Crazy Night, and we knew that the lyrics would all be joyful and the music would be joyful, even if it's a slow song. Good Heart, for example, has a wonderful, joyous lyric. I'm at a stage of my life where I have an amazing husband, 2 beautiful children, an amazing career. I'm still in the game. I love playing live more than I've ever done. I have wonderful musicians. There's nothing in my life to complain about, but boy, do I ever find it. I do complain.
You wouldn't be a band leader if you didn't.
I just think for someone like myself and Bowie and Neil Young and Dylan, and for those people, Springsteen, McCartney, if you don't challenge yourself later in your life and you just coast, then it's all over and done with. I don't want to coast. I'm not nostalgic. I don't listen to my old stuff except when I have to rehearse them for a tour. I'm listening, and I want to play the new stuff. The Diving Board was a record that I couldn't play in arenas. It was, as T-Bone said, a parlor record. It was like a theater record. I could play it in here because this is a beautiful theater, but I couldn't play it in arenas. So this record, we've rehearsed 6 songs. They all sound pretty damn good. I mean, usually when you play a new song, people hurtle towards the toilets quickly. But you have to try and play new songs. The Stones always try and play new songs. You have to. People come and they want to hear the hits. But if you don't play a couple of new things, then you're going to go crazy. You really are, as an artist.
Well, one of the points you made about the wonderful band brings me to Raylene Rosas.
Hi, Elton.
Hi.
How does it feel to be reunited with Nigel Olsson and Davy Johnson on the new record?
We haven't done a record together since The Captain and the Kid. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful to be in the studio with these guys. With Bernie and I, we have a sixth sense of knowing what to write together. And we don't collaborate, but we have this sixth sense. When I see his lyrics, I know what to write. And these guys in the studio, and they've been with me a long time, they know what to play. I never told my musicians what to play. They've always just gone ahead and they come in and hear the song when I've written it. They write the chords down. We go out and play it a couple of times, and then we record it. It's just that level of musicianship is quite inspiring. And you don't have to spend hours and hours and hours, because I like to get things done in 3 or 4 takes. Otherwise you kind of lose the magic, and then you have to come back to it. And that's the essence of T-Bone as well. He just inspires that. And he said, right, you don't, usually in the old days when the red light went on, I just, my heart was going boom, 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 boom. And now it doesn't. I'm much more relaxed in the studio. I have nothing left to prove except things to myself.
Well, you must like the color red. You have a red piano.
Yeah. No, this was the relic from the Las Vegas show. But it's all about whatever you want to do as you get older as an artist. I don't want to stay in the groove. I listen to a lot of new music. David, you listen to a lot of music because you review for Rolling Stone. I find that listening to new music keeps me inspired. And when I hear something like Christine and the Queens, or something like that, or a guy from Australia, a girl called Sarah Blasko, who you won't have heard of. But there's new music to be found everywhere. Hudson Mohawk is another artist that I love that hasn't been released yet. When I hear these records, I go and find the artist, I bring them up, and I play them on my Apple Beat show, and I feel inspired. All the old stuff is in here, and it's great, because it inspires you, and you can draw on it as a musician. But actually, it's the new stuff, and hearing something great that's new, and it excites you. So I live for now and tomorrow rather than the past.
Well, that kind of energy relates to a question that we have from Yolanda Jones.
Hi, Elton.
Hi, Yolanda.
You're one of rock's most prolific icons. You've put out 3 albums in the last 6 years. What drives you to be so productive at a time when a band like the Rolling Stones, for example, have focused on touring?
Well, I don't think they like each other very much. So I love to tour. I tour a lot, but I always want to put out new music. And I think it's much easier for me because I have a lyric writer. I have someone who can paint the picture for me before the song's written. And it's never, we've never been in the same room ever. And it's not changed since we started writing 49 years ago, when I first wrote a melody to his lyric and played it to him, and it's still the same feeling. He's never said to my face, I'm not sure about that, even though there must have been times when he thought, I didn't think it should turn out like that. He's been brilliant. We've never had an argument. It's as fresh now and as exciting now as it always has been. So there's not the thought of, we've got to go in the studio and what can we do? Because bands like the Stones, like Mick and Keith, they're fighting all the time. And what I think the Rolling Stones should do is a great blues record. And go back to what
Yes.
I think they should do a great blues record, and do things like Come On, the Chuck Berry song that they did earlier on in their career.
That's
single. Where they should do. I think Mick wants to still be relevant on the radio. Well, they're not. And I think Keith would love to do a record like that. And that's what they should be doing. I have it easy. I have someone who creates the story. I embellish it. It's like writing for a movie. When you're writing to visual things, it's so inspiring. And Bernie's lyrics to me are visual. So it's inspiring. I've never got fed up with it. It's enthusiastic now. And I hope I never stop. People like Billy Joel, who's a great, great songwriter, probably one of America's finest ever songwriters, said, there's no point because people don't want to hear them. And I kind of get that as well, because it's very frustrating when you play new songs and people don't really want to hear them. But I can't not have a go. You're always searching for that elusive best song. And ironically, your song was written the second album I ever made, and probably I haven't written a better song than that, I don't know. But it was a good start, because you think, oh God, I've got to keep writing songs as good as your song, or on that level. It's just a challenge. It's life. I love the way life unfolds, the way music unfolds. Music is just it's been my life. It's been my soulmate. It's been when my parents were arguing. It's what I listened to. It's what I held on to. It's what I did against my dad's wishes. It's what's driven me to succeed. I didn't want to become Elton John. I was in a pretty awful band. I met Bernie by happenstance, and it all became the Elton John story. But I never set out to do that. But you know what? The ride has been amazing, and it still is amazing. And we're very, very fortunate as artists to be able to make music. And I am, thank God, with the back catalogue, still fortunate enough to go and play to packed out audiences and ply my trade. And I love it now, actually, more than I've ever done. And that's because I'm making new music. If I wasn't making new music, I think I would feel differently.
You're in the Wiltern Theater, Sirius XM Town Hall. I'm David Frick. So honored to be sitting next to Elton John. We have a question here from, actually following on what you were just saying, from Ruby Montgomery.
Hi, Elton.
Hi, Ruby.
You and Bernie Taupin have defined a defined songwriting partnership. He writes the lyrics, you write the music. With other duos like Mick Jagger and Keith Richards or Bono and The Edge, the lines are more blurred. What do the two of you talk about before or as you're writing? How's that process go?
I don't tell him anything. I don't say, all I told him on this album was up lyrics. I'm happy, you're happy, let's have an joyful album. Joyful. The last album was very, very intimate and not particularly joyful. I wanted to make joyful records. It's so easy. I have it easy, as I just said. When you've got a songwriting team like Jagger and Richards, who, and Bono and The Edge, you don't, it's a matter of getting together and shooting ideas across the table. If one of them doesn't like it, it gets knocked back. I said earlier, Bernie's never knocked anything of mine back.
Have you ever knocked anything back to him?
No. There's been plenty of lyrics.
I have trouble singing this. I don't quite get it.
There's a song he wrote called The Night Bobby Went Electric, which was when Bob Dylan played the Royal Albert Hall in London and got booed, and I was in the audience. And I tried to write that song so many times, and I couldn't because the lyric was so good. There are times when I can't do it. And you just have to accept that. But I would say that 80% of the lyrics he writes, 75% I use them.
I just want to back up a minute. You saw Bob Dylan get booed at the Albert Hall. That's deeply hip.
That's deeply.
I am super impressed.
I much preferred Dylan when he went electric, to be honest with you, because it seemed, it's like when I added David Johnson to the band over the Honky Chateau record, we'd made we'd made Elton John, Tumbleweed, and Madman, not using my band. And we were one of the most successful bands. Dean Murray on bass, Nigel Olsson. We were one of the most biggest touring acts in the world, and they weren't playing on my records. It was crazy. But the way I felt that it would happen was by adding a guitarist, changing the sound, and Honky Chateau was where they started playing on the records. And when Bob Dylan started introducing electric guitar, it's like all the folk purists went nuts. But it was so exciting. It was great. And
so you did not boo? You did not boo?
No, are you kidding me? I couldn't boo. Bob Dylan to me is is who I model my my career on. Looking at him doing he changes like they say Bowie was like a chameleon, but Dylan is as well. And when Modern Times came out, and I thought, God, this record could have been made in the 50s, but it's now being made in. It sounds so modern, but it's based on old kind of records, and it's just so brilliant, and the way he changes. And I thought, you've got to do that. He's telling you something. He's always trying to change things. When he did Nashville Skyline, was the huge shock. Yeah. Absolutely floored everybody. And you take things from people that you admire so much, like him, and you think, God, that's the way to do it. That's the way to go. They're the artists that I love because they're still being bold in their later years. And then he goes and does an album of Sinatra covers. Hello, where did that come from? That's what I mean. Take the chances.
This actually follows up on your discussion about Bernie from Tom Pappas.
Thank you.
Hi, Tom.
Thank you for having us. And
no, you're welcome.
Thank you, Sirius. You've been collaborating, speaking of Bernie, for several decades now, going back to the 60s. What, if anything, has your relationship changed at all through the decades?
With Bernie?
With Bernie.
Well, we used to be in each other's pockets. We used to live in my parents' apartment in North London. He came on all the tours. He met his first wife on one of the tours, which he probably regrets very much so. We have separate lives. We've never really, apart from that in the early days, lived out of each other's pockets. We've never, I can honestly say this on my children's lives, we've never had an argument, ever. He's told me on a couple of times, on a couple of occasions, that my behavior was pretty bad. And that's because I needed to hear it. But we've never had a stand-up fight or a disagreement. There was a time when we started writing with other people. It was necessary for him and it was necessary for me. At the time, I think we were both jealous of each other, but we still didn't have an argument. And if we hadn't have had that break, and I hadn't have given him the freedom to do something else with someone else, then I think the relationship would have probably folded. But if you love someone, set them free, as I think the police said, right?
Yeah.
I think it was Sting who said, if you love somebody.
Yes, solo Sting, not the police.
Huh?
Not solo Sting, not the police.
Yeah, solo Sting, okay.
He had already set them free.
Right. But I think the difference is that I live mostly in England and we don't see each other very often. But I love him more now than I've ever done in my life. He's very happy now with his own 2 daughters. He's very happy for me. He never thought I'd get married. To a woman, let alone a man, and to have children of my own has brought us great peace of mind. And the relationship is incredibly special. I never question it. I don't try and analyze it because it works. And it is very, very strange. But if you believe in God or you believe in something like God or something that directs your life, he was given to me by God. If I hadn't met him, God knows where my life would have been. And I love him so much.
Wow. That's a very beautiful sentiment. Brian Pletcher, this is your moment.
Wow.
Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Brian.
Sorry, Brian.
That's okay. When you make albums now, is it the same when you were making Goodbye Yellow Brick Road and Captain Fantastic? Were you creating a collection of songs for this album, and do you miss creating more concept albums, and what are the new generation missing by not getting concept albums?
Well, the last concept album I made was The Captain and the Kid, which sold about 3 copies thanks to Interscope Records. And
credit where credit is due.
Yeah. I don't really write. It's just a collection of songs. I just knew this time I wanted to write I wanted to be an up-tempo record. Now, being a piano player, it's harder for me to write an up-tempo song because I sit at the piano, which is basically much more different than a guitar. You can play 3 chords on a guitar and it sounds great. On a piano, you tend to be more elaborate with your chord changes and your chord choices. And
you're also sitting down.
Yeah. Huh?
You're sitting down, which sort of
and you're
makes
sitting
it,
down, and
makes
it's
it more
so
serious.
I like misery. I like to write miserable songs because all the best songs in the world are kind of miserable in a way. But on this album, I wrote the songs in David's keys. I wrote them in D's and E's and A's and B's for a guitarist, because usually I'm writing in E flats and B flats and D flats, which for a guitarist is a nightmare. And David has never argued it, but I just thought, this is going to be a guitar-based album. I told him in last January, before we went in the studio, we were in Hawaii doing a show, go out and buy 12 strings guitar. I want this to be jingly-jangly. It wasn't a concept album in a way, but the idea was there before we went in the studio. With the diving board, it was the same thing. T-Bone said, just make a piano record. And with Leon, I knew I was going to make a duet record. So in a way, those 3 albums were very much planned. And the next album, I have no idea. But it's just very nice to be able to use my musicians, so I forget how great they are.
Francois Andrews.
Hello.
Hi.
So regarding this new album, what was the easiest song to write and what was the hardest?
On this album? Mm-hmm. The easiest song was Blue Wonderful, because the title just kind of leapt off the page, and it was the first song we wrote. But per all the albums that I've ever made, we recorded 10 songs in January last year, and then we had a gap, and then we recorded 4 more in April. And we recorded a song a day, and finished with the backing vocals. So the songs were written and recorded on the same day. And I think 14 songs in 17 days, and the album was done, apart from the brass on A Good Heart. And I found it, once I'm on a roll, I don't write very often, so I only seem to write when I'm doing a musical or a movie or an album. So I haven't written since The Diving Board, and I found it very, very cathartic to sit down and write songs. And the most difficult one, there's a song that's not on the album about our children. And it's a beautiful song, but unfortunately when you write songs about children, there's just a slight tweeness that comes out. Apart from Blessed, I wrote a song called Blessed once, and that wasn't twee. The song that we wrote was slightly twee, and it didn't quite make the cut. It'd be on the deluxe record. And the only song I can think of about children that never really is, I think, is twee is Teach Your Children by Crosby, Stills and Nash. I think that's just a wonderful song.
Because that's actually less about the children than it is about the adults.
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually saying this is what you should and can do for them.
Yeah, but it has children in the title, so you think, well, it's like,
it's for kids.
So I didn't really find anything that difficult to write on this album. That's because I get a lot to choose from. I don't have just 10. I wanted to make it a 10-track record because Bono said to me, 10 tracks, that's it. No more than 10 tracks. And he's right. Because in this day and age, people don't have the attention span to cope with 17 tracks, nor do I. So 10 tracks it was, and I had about 25 to 30 lyrics. So I had so much choice. I could have written another 5 or 6 songs. I didn't have to. So I never find it difficult to write to Bernie songs only with the day Bobby went electric. For some reason, I couldn't write that.
It's still bothering you, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. It's such a great lyric. That's like, and I wanted to write this song so much because of the occasion. Just couldn't do it.
Well, you're at the Wiltern Theater, the Sirius XM Town Hall with Elton John. I'm David Frick, and the next question is from Nicole Otupalik.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi. Have you and Bernie ever written a song, then been surprised at how it was received by the fans?
I don't really read what the fans have to say, so I don't know. I don't go on the internet. There used to be fan magazines, but I never read those either. I don't read anything about myself. I don't watch my own videos. I don't watch myself on TV. I just don't do it. It's just, I don't really read my press because there's no point. It's done, and that's that. We've done it. And I just don't want to become self-obsessed. It's like, some people say you're great, some people say you're horrible, and that's the way it is. And if some fans didn't like some of the songs, then that's their choice. That's their prerogative. No one can like everything. I mean, it's impossible. But I don't really read that. I certainly don't read stuff on. I just have an iPad. I don't have a phone.
That makes 2 of us.
You don't have one?
No.
Good boy. I love you, David.
We are now a fan
I do
club
not
of
have
2.
a phone. I'm a Luddite. I have an iPad because I want to FaceTime my children, and I like to get the news in the morning. I read the New York Times, the LA Times, and I get my news from the internet. But apart from that, I don't read anything about myself.
Were there songs, when you first came over here in 1970 and played at the Troubadour here in LA, were there songs that resonated with people in a special way that maybe you didn't expect?
Yeah, things like The King Must Die, 60 Years On, Take Me to the Pilot. I mean, the Elton John album had a lot of obscure stuff on it. In fact, I had this image of being a singles artist, and in fact, Tumbleweed Connection, which followed it, I've never had a single from it. And
that's actually probably my favorite album, in
Tumbleweed,
addition to this one. You just like Where To Now, St. Peter,
Yeah.
and just that sense of the band and that whole pioneer American aesthetic.
Well, you know, we were obsessed with the band, and we were obsessed with that kind of Americana music. We always have been. The best music, I feel, is the Southern blues, R&B, country, gospel mixture that comes from the South. It's influenced all sorts of music. And
actually, the song "A Good Heart" on the album, the thing that struck me about it when I heard it was I thought, this, with the horns on it, it almost sounds like it could have been on Abbey Road, but it also sounds like a song that Percy Sledge would have killed for Atlantic.
Or Otis, yeah.
Or Otis,
oh, yeah. And, you know, it's kind of sounds like a Stax record. And, you know, that I wasn't sure about that song on the album at all until the brass went on it. It was arranged by Abe, who's the fiddle player from the Punch Brothers. And he did a wonderful job, and it just pulled the whole track together.
It's a beautiful track. Finn Comer, please. Oops.
Aha! Other end.
End run.
Hello, thank you very much
Hi.
for having us here this evening. You're going to love this one. How important was fashion to you in rock and roll? And then who was the new and exciting upcoming rock and roll or pop stars fashion-wise?
Fashion. Well, fashion was very much a big part of the English acts. If you look at people like The Who wore the Union Jack jacket, if you looked at the Smick, and when he came out for the Brian Jones concert, when you look at Rod in the early days with that incredible hair and the scarves, when you look at Freddie Mercury, when you look at Mark Bolan, who was the first person, I think, to wear makeup, and myself, we were all influenced a bit by British vaudeville. And there's something about British men that can't wait to get in drag and put makeup on.
That's like the whole history of Monty Python. You know, guys dressing
it's
up
like
as...
English men can't wait to get in a dress and walk across the stage. And it, you know, Boy George carried it through into the late 70s, 80s, and it's very important, fashion. I think when you go on stage, it's very important to dress the part. I couldn't come on stage in a t-shirt and jeans, and I don't really like seeing that many bands who do. I like to feel as if like this is an occasion. You two don't really dress up, but they have the most amazing light show, so you don't really notice them anyway. But people like the Stones and Bowie and Queen and me and Rod, and we've always dressed the part because it's part of the ritual for me. And it came from people like Elvis and Little Richard and Gene Vincent and Eddie Cochran, who always looked fantastic. And I like bands to make an effort. The Killers make an effort, or Brandon does, and he looks great. And it always just adds a little bit to the excitement of the Prince. Another one, amazing. It's like, what's he going to wear tonight? Whose curtains is he wearing tonight? And what bell bottoms is he going to wear? But it's part of you're wondering what the hell he's going to wear, and it's exciting.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that whole sense of ritual, because there's also the sense of occasion. I was looking at a book last night in a bookstore of pictures that Terry O'Neill took of you at the Dodgers Stadium in a spangled Dodgers uniform with a spangled bat.
Yeah.
The bat had spangles.
The bat had spangles because that was my first ever stadium show. And the LA Dodgers, the O'Malley family owned the Dodgers in those days. They were such lovely people. I was doing 2 nights there. I couldn't believe it. Cary Grant came to see the show. It was just incredibly important. So you got an outfit to match the occasion. And what better than to wear a Dodgers outfit? And I love baseball anyway. I'm a huge baseball fan. So and it's just part of it for me, and it always has been. I obviously carried it a little far sometimes.
A little?
A little. But actually, when I look back, I've just been in Australia, and there was a photographic exhibition of acts that have been in Australia, and some of the outfits I wore were astoundingly fabulous, but they weren't really what you should be playing Candle in the Wind to. But I don't give a shit. I like them.
Okay, we have a really good question here from Jessica Hawkes.
Hi, Elton.
Hi, Jessica.
I'm so inspired to be here with you today. Compared with many of your contemporaries, you are comfortable and excited to collaborate on stage and records with a wide range of artists, from Lady Gaga to Axl Rose. What makes you so enthusiastic about collaboration?
It's exciting to work with other people. I did a duets album, and I got to sing with Bonnie Raitt and Katie Lang, and then Leonard Cohen. And Leonard and I were, there was this big microphone. He was one side and I was the other. We were doing an old Ray Charles song called Born to Lose. And he started it off, and he went, Born to Lose. And I just couldn't stop laughing. And he said, what is so funny? I said, it sounds like an ocean liner leaving Long Beach. Born. It was the lowest note I'd ever heard. Getting to work with people that you love and admire and getting to play on stage with them is a huge, huge buzz. One of the greatest moments of my life on that album was making a duet with Little Richard. And he hadn't been in the studio for years, and we wrote a special song for him, and we did it in Atlanta. And just to have him in the studio and to see how he didn't know how to drop in. It's like you stop the tape and then you start again. He didn't know that. He was always used to doing one takes.
One take, straight through.
God, there's so many. I mean, I did a record with Aretha once. It wasn't very good, but we didn't do it together, which I'm fortunate. But there's always artists. Mary J. Blige, I've done something with. Axl Rose. Yeah, it's so much fun, especially when the other person is a great performer. And you learn something. You learn. I spent my life from the age of 17 to 20 playing in a band that used to back people like Patti LaBelle and the Bells, Billy Stewart, Major Lance, Fontella Bass, Lee Dorsey, great soul singers. And I learned so much from watching them perform. And that stood me in good stead, because if you watch, I told Sam Smith when he started out, he was a little rigid on stage. I said, Sam, go on YouTube, watch all the old soul bands. Go watch Otis Redding. You know, it's just, he came from a television, or he came from a non-performing background, so that when he had Stay With Me out, he was thrust onto the stage, and it's different. In the old days, you traveled around in a van, and you learnt your craft, and then when you're ready to make it, you've got backbone, you've got experience. So there you go. I hope I kind of answered your question there.
Actually, Bill Dickerson has a nice follow-up to that.
Thank you. Elton, after so many collaborations over the years, who is still on your dream list that you've not yet worked with?
Kenny G. I don't know. I don't mind, people like Diana Krall, who is one of the most incredible piano players I've ever met. I'd love to do something with her. There's a new act who I love called Young Thug, who I think is fantastic. And he's brilliant. Going back to answering your question again, I forgot to answer who you said who do I think the new fashion people are? I just remembered I said FKA Twigs, Christine and the Queens, Weekend. I mean, they're all got great looks. Going back to your thing, is there anyone on my wish list? There's always someone on my wish list. There's always someone, Bruno Mars. God, he's brilliant. Bruno Mars live is one of the best things I've ever seen in my life. And I got to sing with him at the Rainforest Foundation in New York. I sang Unchained Melody, and he blew me away. He's so good. Gaga and I have just been in the studio writing, so I'd love to do something with her, although we've done the Grammys. But I'd love to record something with her.
The thing is, you actually started out as a session musician, so actually collaborating really is quite natural for you.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a collaborator because worked with Bernie. I used to play piano on other people's records, like the Hollies. He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother. That's me on the piano. Yeah.
Listen closer next time.
You can tell, by the way, it's me. Collaboration is the greatest because you learn so much from listening and watching and just soaking in the talent. I've been on stage with so many great people, different people, like Barbra Streisand, Frank Sinatra. And although I didn't sing with them, you notice how they hold themselves, how the microphone's held. Katie Lang, Dionne Warwick. The louder their voice gets, the farther the microphone gets away. So you notice things like that. You notice style, you notice technique, and collaboration is so exciting. Sometimes it doesn't work, but if you don't try, I think one of the good collaborations was on the new Basement tapes, which came out last year, which was a reworking of old Bob Dylan lyrics with Elvis Costello and Marcus Mumford and T-Bone. That was a really interesting collaboration.
Rhiannon Giddens.
Yeah,
and Jim
Rhiannon
James.
Giddens. I love Rhiannon
Incredible
Giddens.
voice.
Her album is suddenly doing
album
brilliantly.
is one of the best records of the year.
Absolutely.
Julie Gazillion will help us with this next question.
Thank you, Elton, for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. What's it like to be knighted?
We don't have anything like that here, so we really
no, we
would like
don't.
to know.
Well, you have to kneel, and then the Queen goes dang, 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 and then. But before I was knighted, there's an announcement. You stand in line and you go, and someone said, "Sir John Elton," which is wrong. It should be Sir Elton John. So that was funny. And it's funny. The Queen says, "Are you busy?" And I go, "Yes, ma'am. I'm writing a musical." He goes, "How lovely." And then off you go. There's about another 300 to do.
You're sort of taking a lot of the real aura off it.
I think David Bowie turned down a knighthood, and a lot of people have.
Keith Richards swears he will if anyone bothers to offer it to him.
Yeah. So, it's basically it was for me for the AIDS Foundation and stuff like that. So it's good for the AIDS Foundation to have a knight in not so shining armor, but a knight at the head of the letterhead, because it makes more people in other countries take notice. I know it sounds naff, but it's true.
But the thing is, we don't have anything like that here. And when I think of
you have the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Sir Walter Roy. You're recognized for something cultural, as opposed to say
you have
conquering
the Kennedy Center honors. You have the Kennedy Center honors, and you have the Congressional Medal.
But we came to those quite late. You've been having sirs for a very long time.
I can only imagine if it was Sir Kanye West or something like that. He probably thinks he is anyway.
He's knighted himself.
He's knighted himself.
Louis Tenorio.
Hello, Elton.
Hi.
My question is, your fans love seeing you play live. What is the part of touring that you dislike?
The thing I dislike most?
Yes.
The traveling. I travel in the best way possible, but it's still a schlepping, I think is the word. I schlep around the world, and I just sleep on a plane. If it's 45 minutes, I sleep. I can't watch movies, I can't read a book, I just go to sleep. That's the hardest part. For me, the performing is just, wherever I am is fantastic, but it's the journey back and forth, and that's the boring part of it.
John Garcia, please.
Hi, John.
Hi. So when you're not touring, writing, or recording, what's your favorite way to spend your time?
With my children, with David, having dinner with friends, collecting photography, collecting art. I'm a big collector of things, and so I don't know how I find the time to do things, but I do. I've always been interested in collection. I got sober in 1990, and I sold all my possessions in London at a Sotheby's sale for a week in 1989. And it's funny, when I got sober in 1990, everything I had that I'd bought and I'd sold, I didn't like anymore, and I suddenly noticed things that, with new eyes, and so I collect photography with a passion, and I love seeing our friends, but mostly it's spending time with the boys, and we've just been to Aspen and taking them skiing, and they love skiing so much, so that's now, every year we're going to take them skiing after Christmas, and hopefully at Easter as well, so it's all about them now. My career is now about their school holidays, and gradually the shows are being scaled back because I want to see my boys grow up. They've given me everything in my life that I'd never thought possible. And, I can't say enough about how loving and wonderful life is with those kids in it.
You're at the Sirius XM Town Hall at the Wiltern Theater in Los Angeles. I'm David Frick, and I am extremely honored and fascinated to be sitting next to Elton John. We have one more question here from Lisa McManus.
Elton, thank you. Such an honor to be here. So enjoyed listening to your music, and thank you to Sirius. What new artists are you excited about, and is there anyone that you're listening to now that would surprise us?
That I'm listening now, what, sorry?
Yes. Is there anyone that you're listening to now as far as music that would surprise us?
You've actually mentioned some artists that you like, but like...
Well, Hudson Mohawk, who's not released over here. Grimes, I love Grimes. It's her second record. Art Angel, it's a brilliant record. And it should be investigated. Rhiannon Giddens, whose record came out early of last year and is now beginning to sell in big quantities in America and in Great Britain. It's a very Americana record, but she's great. She's kind of Is she with the Carolina Chocolate Drops?
Right, and she's also operatically trained.
Yeah, she's a bit like Audra McDonald with a bit of soul, right?
A lot of soul, yeah.
So, and Roseanne Cash's record, The River and the Thread. There are certain records that should sell more but don't because they don't have really an outlet on the radio. There are plenty of people there, a boy called Parker Millsap, St. Paul and the Broken Bones, who are from Birmingham, Alabama. They're all records that really deserve to be heard, and if any of you go and buy them, you'll enjoy them because you can see why I love them. Chris Stapleton's record is incredible. Tennessee Whiskey is one of the most surprising things I heard last year. I went, oh, that's where country is going, is it? Thank God. That's fantastic. Casey Musgraves, another one I love. So there's plenty of stuff out there. You might have to root for it, and you might have to listen to other radio stations rather than the formulaic crap that they play. But there are really good things there. FK Twigs is great. There's a boy called Quabs in England who's brilliant. There's a guy called Bryson Tiller who's an R&B singer. So there's plenty to choose from.
Do you stream? Do you stream?
I have never streamed anything. I wouldn't know how to download anything. I haven't got my phone. I haven't got a phone. I don't know how to stream. I buy my CDs. I buy vinyl now because I've rebought most of the stuff that I sold years ago. Not everything, of course, but I have vinyl machine in Vegas and in England. And most new artists now put their album out on vinyl simultaneously. And so I prefer the ritual of getting the album sleeve, playing the record, turning it over, looking at the gatefold sleeve or the album artwork. And I tend to only listen to records, CDs in the car, and everything I listen to now is on vinyl.
Wow. Do you have stores? Do you order them? With record stores disappearing, you were fabled for the size of your record collection. I was very envious, actually.
What happens, David, is in England and the rest of the world now, CDs come out on Fridays and DVDs. I get an advance list of CDs that are coming out. I mark them off. I order them from Great Britain and the books. I have books as well. I order the books that are coming out and the DVDs, and the same with America. And I write them down in a book that I've ordered them. One is a CD book, one is a DVD book, one is a book. And when I get the CD, the book, or the DVD, I cross it off with a pink highlighter. And it's terribly anorakish, but I love to do it because and you find out about it from magazines, you find about it online, you read about it in newspapers, and there's a great site called Pause and Play in America, which tells you what's coming out in next week, the week after, whatever. So I go through that, and I write it down, and then I order it from my office in LA and in Britain, and it finally gets to me.
Are you hoping that someone will discover Wonderful Crazy Night in the same way that it's, that cycle still works for the music that you make, that there are people out there who are new to your music? Is that something that you're hoping for?
Yeah, because actually in our live shows we get a lot of young people and a very big mixture. But yes, you're always hoping that your new music will reach people, or your old music, but especially the new music, because that's really what you're most enthusiastic about at this particular time. I am enthusiastic about Wonderful Crazy Night because it's my new music, and I really love it, and I don't want people to hear it. So whatever way, and as I said, I'm a Luddite, so I have to do online interviews. I have to think about how things are promoted this way. I go kicking and screaming to it, but you have to. We are in a different age now. When I first started, it was just press and radio and a little bit of television. Now it's with the internet and viral, you have to consider everything. And if you want your record to sell, you have to accept the changes that have been made, and you have to go with them. And yeah, of course I want my records to be heard by new people as well as old people, because that's why you write them.
Well, you have made a wonderful record. Wonderful Crazy Night is, as the title says, wonderful and crazy.
Thank you.
And I think that everyone here got a good taste of that music today. And it's been my honor to be in the Wiltern Theater on the Sirius XM Town Hall with Elton John. I'm David Frick. He is Elton John.
Thank you.
This has been a Sirius XM exclusive Town Hall with Elton John on the Spectrum. Hear it again on demand when you stream through the Sirius XM app.